What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk live here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you head on over to @DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. You check the link tree out. It's in our bio on the Twitter page. If you guys want to be interactive throughout today's show, make sure you head on over to the YouTube channel specifically. It's the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, questions, and concerns pulled up here on the screen with us. I am one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter @DylanJD98. To my right, my co-host, Scotty. You can find him on Twitter as well, @ScottyDrown. Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl recap. My man, how are you feeling on this Wednesday? We had to take a couple of days for multiple reasons, but we had to take a couple of days to really kind of let it all sink in and kind of relax a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Just had to get a few days. Obviously, you guys could see my condition on Sunday morning, and it certainly didn't get better with the loss. So, yeah, we had to take a few days there. Obviously, Valentine's Day as well. We both have our special significant others that we had to take care of on that day as well. But nonetheless, I'm happy to be here to sort of I don't want to, say it is, though. It's a close to the season, and get this venting out, right? It was a stressful Sunday, nonetheless, and the ending is definitely not how we wanted to see it go. But I'm looking forward to digging into it, kind of letting go of it, and I guess moving forward after this show. But it's going to be grueling to kind of go through all of this with you in real time.
Yeah, man, let's do it. So how we're going to do the show, Abe, what's going on? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Anybody else that's watching live with us. Obviously, the Eagles lose the Super Bowl 38-35. Last second field goal kicked by Harrison Butker and the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to get into all that, but we're going to start with what we like to call the blame game. We're going to just vent, let it all out. Why did the Philadelphia Eagles really lose this football game? And then we'll try to get a little more positive as the show goes on, because there were plenty of positives, especially from number one, that we're going to get into moving forward. But guys, I'm not reading verbatim, but I had to get everything out off my mind. Put, normally it's pen to paper, but put finger to iPhone here in the notes, right? So here we go. I want to start off by saying how proud I am to be an Eagles fan, not only for the season they just had and to be in the Super Bowl itself. It's a privilege that not many other fan bases get to experience or enjoy. And after the last few weeks of seeing how other fan bases and other organizations handle accountability, or a lack thereof, I guess you could say, to hear Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, and James Bradberry himself come out after the game, the statements that they made, ensures me that the culture in that locker room is set up for great things. With that said, as much of an honor as it is to even be in the game, when you get to the mountaintop, you so badly want to win it all and bring it all home. Yeah. So here we go. Let's get this first part out of the way, because I don't want to spend too much time blaming 5 seconds of a 60-minute game. The Eagles did not lose this Super Bowl because of that final defensive holding call on James Bradberry. But you cannot, under any circumstances, throw that flag in that situation, Scotty. You decided the Eagles' fate. Yeah. You ended the biggest game of the season on a highly questionable call, on a ball that never had a chance to be caught, with a receiver that made no notion, no reaction that he was being held. And trust me, nowadays, receivers know when they're being held. I'm not even saying or being one of those fans that says, if Jalen gets the ball back with a minute and a half, we're definitely winning that game. The Eagles are definitely Super Bowl champions. I don't know what happens if they get the ball back, Scotty, but I do know that they deserved a damn chance to make that call on a 3rd and 8. No timeouts left for the Eagles, to allow Kansas City to kneel the clock out and kick a field goal from the 5-yard line is absolutely inexcusable. It robbed the Eagles of a chance to compete further into the game, and it robbed football fans everywhere, not just Eagles fans, of watching an already great game continue to shine. That's the bottom line. I don't know if you have anything else to add on to that call before we move forward.
Yeah, no, just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying there. I mean, I'm once again, I want to state it again, like, we're not blaming the game on this. We're not saying the Eagles lost solely because of this reason, right?
No.
But it's frustrating. And I mean, you talk about levels of frustration, man. Like, from like over 10, right? A scale of 1 to 10. We're through the freaking ceiling here at the end of that game. And, it frustrated fans outside of Philadelphia, right? Like it was outside of the Eagles fan base. And that's when it's really bad
when
there's
everyone's saying the
outside.
same thing about a call.
Exactly. You have
think you
LeBron
really know
James.
how it.
You have LeBron James right at the game. I'm not saying LeBron says whatever. He's just a
No,
notable figure, right? He's a Cowboys fan, for God's sakes. So, like, he comes
There's
out
Cowboys
and says, "I let you
players."
know." There's Cowboys players that said it. It's just ultimately the most frustrating thing that could ever happen at the end of the game. And what I would ultimately say is that, maybe it's a holding call, maybe it's not. The point is they did not call anything like that the entire game.
Dude.
And then as soon as they go and they reach, like you said, as soon as they reach for that flag, Dylan, they know that is the end of the Eagles season right there in their hands.
Exactly what came out of my mouth, man.
I just can't get past that. I can't get past what Roger Goodell's saying after the game to Chris Jones. Like that whole
really weird stuff.
Very weird stuff. I'm not going to go down the conspiracy theory hole. None of that. Once again, I'm going to congratulate the Kansas City Chiefs on their win. But that call was egregious, man. And that's just not what you want to see in what is arguably one of the best Super Bowls of all time, man. I mean, that was a super competitive game, and it was ridiculous to end like that.
I was talking to my buddy the next day about it. In the moment, as an Eagles fan, battling back and forth, being down 8 with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, you don't realize it in the moment that this is if this was the Bengals Rams of last year, if that was this game, I'd be sitting there as a fan like, holy shit, this Super Bowl is amazing. You don't take notice to it in the moment because you're so gut wrenched or you're so invested in the Eagles side of things. And it literally took the win right out of my sail, man. Like I fell to a knee almost, and I looked up and I'm like, you just ended the fucking Super Bowl. Yeah. That's what you did, bro. And not to mention, Scotty, it was a late flag. He didn't even throw it on time.
And Dylan, not to even compare the situations because they're not even on the same scale, but I mean, it was eerily similar to that Commanders game on national television.
Yeah, the Giants Commanders game.
Eerily, no, the Eagles.
The Eagles. Yeah, the late hit,
our first loss. That Brandon Graham unnecessary roughness. I mean, it felt eerily similar to that, but on the biggest stage that you could ever imagine.
You can't do it, man. You cannot.
It hurt. Against a team like Kansas City, too, who has Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, right? You don't need to give them anything.
Don't need favors. And to wrap it up, because again, we're 8 minutes in here. That is not the reason they lost. It's not even really a reason you just can't do that in that moment on this stage. And it bothers me because there's no repercussions for them. They'll be back in this moment making these calls again.
We're not saying that that's the reason they lost because we don't know that they would have won if that call doesn't happen, right? So that's not the reason.
But they deserved a chance.
Yeah, they deserved a chance, and I think we all deserved a chance to see that. I mean, we saw
everybody did, not just
Eagles
Mahomes fans
take them up the field, right? We watched Hurts just take us up the field and tie the ball game. I mean, I think they robbed everyone of it. I mean, obviously they robbed. Rob is not the right word. Once again, I'm not trying to blame it on that. I guess we could just move on. Because it's hard to talk about it without it sounding like that. It's just annoying.
No, it sounds whiny, right? It sounds crybaby-ish. I don't know how else to get it off my chest without saying it was one of the worst calls ever. I don't know how else to say it. With that being said, though, now it's time for me to get to Mr. Jonathan Gannon, who we now know will not be back as the Eagles defensive coordinator next year. And Scotty, I know you and I might not see eye to eye on this discussion.
We see eye to eye with that, though.
Oh yeah. But I'll try to set the table as best I can for this discussion. Okay. Yeah. What I took away from this game, Jonathan Gannon is the epitome of why Philadelphia fans are the way that we are. Why we're unable to buy in. Why we have a hard time believing in our teams, right? You and I had that discussion all year long. Why can we not fully buy into this team? Yeah. And then you do, and you get your heart ripped out. I defended this man more than 99.999% of Eagles fans this year. And no, one game versus Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, two of the best at their respective positions of all time, should not define or take away from a great overall season that this team had and that Gannon and this defense had. But that performance, that performance specifically in the second half on Sunday night was maybe
Can you guys still hear me out there? I'm wondering what's going on here. Is it just Dylan that's froze, or is this me? Hmm. All right. Yeah, he just disconnected. So he should be back. I'm sorry about that, guys. Just some minor tech difficulties there. We'll let Dylan go once he hops back in the stream here. I know what he's gonna get at. I sort of know what he's gonna get at with the Jonathan Gannon, and I'll just present my case on the opposite end here until Dylan is able to get back. I've already kind of told him my thoughts, anyways. But I think there's just a ton of blame to go around in this game, and I'm not going to solely blame Jonathan Gannon in this game for that performance. I get it. It was a terrible performance by the defense. We were able to get zero pressure. We couldn't stop the run, right? And definitely couldn't stop their offense at all in the second half. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs made some adjustments. My main reason for I don't want to call it defending Jonathan Gannon, because I'm not here to defend Jonathan Gannon. Certainly not. As I just mentioned, I'm happy to see him go because I want to see what this defense looks like with a more aggressive defensive coordinator. But what I wanted to talk about is the fact that Jonathan Gannon did decide to go away from his zone coverages, right? We talked about that going into the game. This was the game where the Eagles played the most man-to-man coverage in the entire season, right? I believe it was up around 63%. And you look back at it, and everybody's talking about how Jonathan Gannon didn't adjust. I just don't think that was true. I think that he did adjust, and I think the adjustments cost us ultimately. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself whether they run man, whether they run zone against Patrick Mahomes. If you're not getting pressure on Patrick Mahomes, there's not much that you can do. And my thoughts on this game is we look at this roster and we call this the most talented roster maybe that the Eagles have ever had, right? I have to hold the players accountable here. So when you're in the goal line setting, back-to-back series, and they run the same exact play against you, there has to be some play recognition from the players on the field. Somebody has to recognize that. I get it. Gannon has to have these guys more prepared. I do agree with this. He has to have them more prepared. I don't know what the hell happened, bro.
My entire house's power just went out. Like as I was mid-speech, everything just went black.
I didn't know if it was my screen
bro.
freezing. We know I've had my issues.
What the fuck? Literally, the whole everything just went out. Okay. Should I continue, or were you in the middle of a point?
Honestly, I was just going over my point of view and kind of talking about knowing where you were coming from, and you can obviously finish. I'll just finish off what I was saying here. I was looking at it from the player's perspective, and I'm looking at Darius Slay getting confused in the goal line setting, right? That just can't happen with the top 5 corner in the NFL. Those are the things that I'm looking at. I'm looking at the pass rush. If the pass rush can't get to the quarterback, if that field is so shitty, which we haven't even started to talk about that yet, then what is this defense going to do? We ran man coverage the first time this season, right, for majority of the game. That may have been a mistake. But do you run zone against Patrick Mahomes? I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer to what you do against Patrick Mahomes to say that. But I guess what I'll end my thoughts here on Dylan, and I'm not disagreeing with you. At the end of the day, I wanted Jonathan Gannon out the door. And I think we could have had an argument for that regardless if this game goes our way or not, right? The way that score ended up, as easy as the Chiefs were scoring in that game. But the way it's felt all season, it's felt like the players have gotten the credit whenever the defense does their job, right? But Gannon doesn't get the credit. He still gets the questions. So then when the players don't do their job in the biggest game of the season, I still have to hold them accountable somewhat. When I'm seeing Hassan Reddick get drove into the ground by the right tackle that we agreed. We thought that was going to be the weak link. But once again, it's not that I disagree with you overall. I guess just in this game, we got this far with Jonathan Gannon. the players got us this far, right? If his scheme is that bad, it's the players that have done it. So I wish they could have just done their job one more time in this game against the best quarterback.
It's very
Go
what
ahead.
you're saying. I know I do get you. It's very Doc Rivers-esque, right? When things are going good, no credit. When things are going bad,
But we would agree we both would rather not see Doc Rivers as well.
Right. So,
we would agree
I
there.
hear everything that you just said, and somewhere in my rebuttal, somewhere down the line, I'll get to those points, I think.
Okay.
I'll try to pick back up where I was before everything decided to turn off on me. Yeah, Jonathan Gannon is the epitome of why we are the way we are. Why we can't trust, why we can't buy in and fully believe in a team. And like I said, no, this one performance against Reed and Mahomes should not just wipe off everything else that they accomplished this season. But that performance, again, specifically coming out of halftime in the second half on Sunday night, was maybe the worst defensive performance I have ever seen, Scotty. And I watched Tom Brady never punt against us a few years ago. To get absolutely pantsed on the biggest stage, to have no answers, no counterpunch, to feel absolutely hopeless as I watched Mahomes do whatever he wanted to on TV was embarrassing. Jalen Hurts deserved that game.
Yeah.
We are now the first team in NFL history to score 35 points in a Super Bowl and lose that game. The offense deserved this game. They did their job and then some. Now, there is some blame on the offense in the running game, and I'll get to that later with you. I'm saying all of this because as I reflect back onto the season and basically what you just brought up, right? Like when things were great, we gave it all to the players. I'm mad at myself for how I bought into Gannon heading into this game. I can't believe how naive and how pumped up he got me from that 5-second video before the Niners game. Scott, to be honest, man, whenever he faced a formidable quarterback, forget last year. We know the talent issues, blah, blah. This year, whenever he faced a formidable quarterback, Dak, Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Mahomes, the defense gave up almost 35 points per game.
Yep.
I look back and I think he got carried by a 4-man pass rush this season. And when they couldn't get home on Sunday night, Jonathan Gannon had no answers.
Yep.
To your point about where was Hassan Reddick, I get that, man. But you got to counterpunch. If he's not getting home, you got to do something different. He does nothing different. He had no answers for Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. I get it. They're two of the best offensive minds in the league, maybe the best out there. But my God, you got hosed on Sunday.
Agree with you.
Mahomes had one incompletion in the second half.
Yeah.
One. That's inexcusable.
I do agree with you. It's you know what it is. It's my fault for believing that.
Me too, man.
Could do something different, right? It's our fault for believing that, and he fooled us. I think that's the biggest thing here. He was able to fool us. We can talk about the quarterbacks that they played, and I agree with you. You see it in the numbers. I mean, it's as clear as day, especially when you get to the biggest stage like this. And yeah, man, I don't know. That was a good statement, man. I can't argue against Jonathan Gannon. I can't argue for him because there's nothing that proves that he was like a great defensive coordinator. Yes, the Eagles had great numbers this year, but once again, we're talking about arguably the best roster, especially on the defensive side of the ball, right? The best roster that you could possibly have.
Imagine.
In the Eagles' history, and that's what makes this so disappointing, man. Like. They really fooled me. And you look at the other side, right? This would ultimately be the difference in the game. And this is another point, I guess, that would kind of feed into what you were saying. You look at what Steve Spagnuolo did on the other side, right? To get Jalen out of the pocket, get him flustered.
He didn't do it much.
All-out blitz.
Guess
bringing a blitz. And Gannon brings him at the wrong like it's all a timing thing, right? You know,
third and goal from the 3 is the one time you send the house. What are we doing, bro? Listen, I'm with you 110%.
I mean, it's hard to argue against Gannon. I guess I just want some of the blame to go to the players 100%. As well. But yeah, Gannon, 100%. I mean, it's inexcusable.
Because and I saw Abe's comment that he didn't have them prepared, and he did not.
Yeah.
But again, to your point, Darius Slay, why are you the one confused? Like Marcus Epps wasn't confused on that play. The slot corner. Big play Slay was the one that was confused. And whether it was ultimately his fault or not, it's very reminiscent of the Dallas game, the 3rd and 38, right? Maybe he should have passed them off, maybe not. But look what happened in that breakdown. So much went right, but the little things that could not happen happened. Yeah, so let's get into all that. I'm sure we'll circle back around again and then the defense, but so much. You gifted Mahomes 7.
Yeah.
1 turnover. That's it. But guess what? 1 turnover got taken back to the house.
Yeah.
You gave up the biggest punt return in NFL Super Bowl history after a horrible punt. You control time of possession. You scored 35 points.
Dylan, the thing with the special teams, we should have we were fooled by that as well. You know what I mean? The special teams was bad all year. And that ends up being a key moment in the game where they return a punt basically to the house, right? They got all the way up inside the 10-yard line. I mean, the Quez drop. We talked about that earlier this season. There's no way that Quez should come into the equation and matter, right? He comes into the biggest game of the season. Dropped his only target, I feel like. That was his only catch, or his only attempt at a catch, right?
If we're being 100%, that play might have won them the football game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We were up 7. You would have been at the 5.
You're late scoring in the 7 again.
Or middle of the 3rd quarter.
Yeah.
That's it. That would have been everything right there.
Drops
and they didn't. I will say this. I want to get to the one part of the blame that I didn't think would even be a question in this game. The Eagles got beat in the trenches, man.
They did.
It's that simple. And whether you want to talk about defensive line not getting pressure because of what Mahomes and Reed schemed up and they were able to get the ball, they got beat on the offensive line as well. The Eagles were not able to run the ball effectively with their running backs. Jalen had a hell of a game using his legs. And we're going to get to him as a positive later on the show. They were not able to establish the run at all. Miles Sanders was a non-factor. I know he got nicked up on the first drive. Non-factor. Gainwell couldn't get going. Boston Scott, nothing. Reversely, Pacheco ran wild. Mahomes picked up big first downs with his legs.
Key spots.
They got beat up in the trenches a little bit.
It was that last drive, aside, take the holding call out. I mean, they got all the way down into the 10-yard line, right? They were inside the 10-yard line. Take the holding call away from that last drive. They ran the ball down our throats. It was very, very Eagles-esque the way they ended our season. Running 5 minutes off the clock, right? We controlled time of possession the whole game. No, they take it over at the end. They run the clock out. We don't see the ball again after we give it back to them with 5 minutes to go. It was very Eagles-esque, and you don't do that without controlling the line of scrimmage. They punched our defensive line, our front 7 in the mouth. You saw it early on in the game, like I was talking about earlier. Just guys getting drove into the ground. I get the field conditions. Everybody had to deal with them.
Right.
And that's not an excuse for the Eagles side, right?
This ain't Deflategate where they have deflated balls and you don't, right?
They got bodied, and you talked about it already on the other side of the ball in the trenches. Weren't able to get the running game going at all, aside from Jalen Hurts, right? He's the only guy that was able to use his legs in this game. And once again, just speaking to Jalen, I mean, it's the caliber of game that he had, but didn't get any help in the rushing attack from the running backs. And Miles Sanders, I mean, he just looked like a deer in headlights, man. Yeah. Like you said, he got nicked up in the first drive of the game. He fumbled. I get it. You just can't fumble in the Super Bowl. I don't care what happens. And then later on in the game, there was a specific play. I think it was the fake QB
where he didn't cut it
upfield, bro. That's 7. I was sick to my stomach watching that, man. It was just so like all of the tendencies that were like all of the bad tendencies.
I was just gonna say this is what I was about to say to you next. Every red flag that popped up throughout the regular season came back to bite them in the ass tonight. Quez Watkins drop, special team kick, punt return, stopping the run. Gannon soft. Everything came back to bite them in the worst moment, and they only lost by a game-winning field goal. So to try to lighten the mood, to try to make this a little more positive, Jalen Hurts is undoubtedly, unequivocally your franchise quarterback. And he's not just your franchise quarterback. Scotty, he's a star.
Yeah.
I saw Abe's comment earlier up. He may have outplayed Patrick Mahomes. Now it's tough to say because, like I said, Mahomes had the ball with less time. Not that that's not his defense's fault, but he had less time. He only threw one incompletion in the second half. Jalen Hurts was out of his mind on Sunday night. Third down. He either picked it up with his legs or made dart after dart, big throw after big throw.
Throws.
The touchdown, he threw A.J. Brown open. It's the bottom line. He threw him open in the corner of the end zone at the goal
Gives
line.
you chills, man.
That game-tying drive, that 2-point conversion where he gets hit by 2 defenders at the line of scrimmage and still plows his way into the end zone. And
His will, man.
You're right, Abe. He's elite. He was out of this world on Sunday.
You to wins, man. He wills you to wins. Like whether it's with his and it's not a question of like, oh, he uses his legs to will you to wins. He can use his arm for everything. There's no limits to what he can do on the football
2 of those
field.
Goddard throws
Ridiculous.
were
Goddard, man. Goddard really stepped up to the plate for me too.
Yeah.
The receivers, aside from Quez.
Brown, Smith,
Brown, Smitty, and Goddard, those guys played out of their mind in this game for me, man. The Smitty catch, I mean, I don't want to just forget about it. It slipped into my mind when you're talking about drives and some of the throws that Jalen Hurts was making in this game, because you talk about that catch that's called back at the end of the first half. Just such a makeup call for the San Fran game, man. It was hard for me to get over that one as well. But Jalen Hurts, brother, I'm with you. And there's talk about the contract now, as there should be, right? It's extension time. It's off season. Give him the money. I mean, I don't think he's a guy that
a little bit, because then it makes me wonder like what we can put around him. Right?
I know.
Like
I don't think that he's a guy that will
either
like wring us out dry, right? To where he has nothing around him. He knows he needs help around. Every quarterback needs help. And I think he's a smart guy. I think he knows what he needs around him. I think he knows what it takes to win now. And I would just give him whatever he asks for, man. He's a culture-setting leader, and I think that's the difference between him and other quarterbacks.
Let's say the window from the basement to the ceiling for Hurts's money per year was 45 to 55, 45 being the basement, 55 being the max he'll get per year. I legitimately think he would take sub-50. Like, I think he would take like 48, 49.
I agree.
I think he's that kind of,
and he would be okay with maneuvering it to where some of it,
and how he can handle those different things. So and we'll get into that later on. We have all season to do it.
It's one of those things. I mean, we don't have to get too far into it, but it's one of those things. You go to Hurts, it's like, hey, we could bring back so and so to help you here. If we just move this part of the money into next year, so on and so forth.
We can afford to keep CJ Gardner-Johnson if X happens.
He's the guy, man. He's the guy. I wanted to say I owe this guy like so many apologies. It's just unlimited. There's no point in apologizing because I would be doing it for the rest of my life. But I will say he's earned himself like a lifelong fan in me. Obviously, franchise quarterback for the Eagles. I need him to get extended here. We know he can win, and I'm so astonished by the culture that he and Sirianni have been able to implement with just 2 seasons so far, with Hurts being a starter and Sirianni the head coach. That is, it's incredible, man. But
how wrong I was, and how far he's come from that Dallas Monday night game in week 3 last year, from that Tampa Bay wild card round. Remember, we talked about it a lot. Remember looking like a deer in headlights on his first national television game as a starter, right? He looked like a deer in headlights. All of those, all of those attributes, all the off the field stuff, all the intangibles showed out and showed up in the biggest fashion. And that's honestly, as I'm sitting here and I'm getting upset because it's what made the defensive holding call more heartbreaking.
Yeah.
What I just witnessed this kid do 3 minutes prior, I wanted one more shot. If we lose at the end of the game, and no, I get it. He threw a Hail Mary with 2 seconds. Like, great. Congratulations, guys. We got the ball back for half a second. if we would have went down swinging with the ball in our hands, I could understand that. That's what made it so much more heartbreaking is we never got the effing chance to see it.
I needed that. Yeah, just to feel like complete. That's why this loss, it feels like just incomplete, right? The season doesn't feel complete. And maybe that's just the loser talking to me, the sore loser.
Maybe, but you know what it feels?
It doesn't
it's
sit
unfinished.
right.
It's unfinished business. And what did he say all year long? There's food left on the plate. There's food left. We don't want to leave food on the table. There's food left on the table now, bro.
Yeah.
And I promise you this kid's getting back. It might not be next year.
Yeah.
We look at this team. This team got better in the offseason. I know how difficult it is to get back to that stage, right?
Hard.
They will be back next year, year after that. I don't know when. I hope it doesn't take too long because I'm craving it already.
Yes.
But they'll be back, man. And I loved your point, too. The wide receiver, the receiving core, Goddard, Smitty, Brown, showed up in big fashion, man. And that was great to see as well. Like, sure, you weren't able to run the ball the way we wanted to. You still scored 35 effing points. Now, we got to talk about head coach.
Yeah.
Tears streaming down his face during the national anthem, which was awesome because, like, I know people some people were making jokes, some people were loving it. I loved it because it had nothing. It wasn't like, oh, why is he crying? You knew exactly why he's crying. He couldn't believe that he's here, that he's in this situation, that he's the leader of this team, right? But there's a lot of talk today, Monday morning quarterbacking, Wednesday morning quarterbacking. And obviously you heard the decision, the comments or quotes about, you know, it didn't feel good or something felt wrong when they took the field goal.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts? Because in the moment, I was so torn. I was talking to my uncle. You got to take the points, right? But I'm with you in a certain way. I know what it takes to beat Mahomes, man. Yeah. And I'm watching this game. I'm watching the second half. Our defense can't get off the field if our lives depended on it. He risked everything all year long, all game long, and it just feels like at the worst moment, he tightened up a tiny bit and tried to be a little conservative. And it ultimately, as we know now, came back to bite them.
You know, in the moment, I'm with you. It was like, I was torn. So I was probably thinking the same exact way he was, the same exact way you and your uncle were thinking as well. When they made the field goal, I kind of moved on from it. Didn't really think about it
exactly
after the game, honestly. But when you look back on it, it's hard not to think you have to score 7 every single time, especially the way Patrick Mahomes was moving that football. But I'll give Sirianni the benefit of the doubt here when I say this. He was kind of trusting his defense in a sense, right? And maybe it's a moment where you just absolutely can't because they just haven't shown you any reason to trust them in this game. But they have shown up in big moments in this season, right? They've gotten big stops, they've gotten big turnovers, big sacks to end games, to get the ball back for that offense, to run that clock out. And they just weren't able to come up with any stops, right? Like they couldn't just get one stop. So to be fair to Sirianni, that is the case. But the same thing could be said on the other side of that conversation. That happens every time you take 3 against Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. 99.9% of the time, that will happen when you take 3s against Patrick Mahomes, especially in the second half. I think that was the biggest part of it.
Yeah, it's trying to beat the Golden State Warriors with 2s.
It's like you said, Monday morning quarterbacking, right? You can't go back and say, oh, well, we would have gotten that 4th and 6, right? We don't know that we would have gotten.
No.
And then you
walk away with no points.
Completely, right?
Yeah.
So it's a tough one. You hate to hear regrets, but you also appreciate the authenticity, right? The accountability within that. Not shying away from it like, oh, I know I made the right decision. He's being honest. We don't know if that was the right decision. We don't know if it was the wrong decision either. But it's something that you're going to think about. I think A.J. Brown was being honest as well. He would be lying if there was not an inch inside deep down that knew that Patrick Mahomes could come back and win this game. There was stuff I could feel it inside myself. You know what I mean? I knew what was at stake in this game. So of course the players
I said it the moment he got the ball back with 5.5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Now,
I thought they would
not the way it played out. I did not predict the penalty call, But I
Yeah.
looked and I said, I didn't predict that it would happen. I just said my heart couldn't take a 5-minute game-ending field goal, and it's literally what happened. After I watched Yordan Alvarez put one 700 feet to the moon over center field a couple months ago. Like, just so many heartbreaking situations. Let me ask you something. I know it's hard to divide and compartmentalize the Eagles and Turf Talk here, right? Because we're ultimately, this is Turf Talk. We're ultimately breaking down the Eagles. Looking at it from the Chiefs' point of view, like just going back to before the season started.
Yeah.
People are dumb, man. People are dumb. Like, I tried to go against the grain. I said they would be the second team coming out of the AFC West. Chargers would take that jump. They didn't. So I'm not like clear of looking stupid for a sense. There are people saying they want to make the playoffs. There are people saying he's going to miss Tyreek Hill so badly that they would be the 4 or 3 seed in their division. He's unreal, bro. Like, that's all I can really say about it. He's effing believable.
Yeah, to say the least, man. You got to give the props to the Chiefs for what they were able to do this season. Obviously, losing Tyreek Hill, you see they were able to not lose a spot, right? They didn't move 1 inch, right? They're still the number 1 seed in the AFC. They still made it right back to the Super Bowl, to the AFC Championship. Gotta tip your hat to them at the end of the day. Their division,
which I know is hard to do right now. They're celebrating right now.
Yeah, their division was supposed to be the toughest in football. Now, to be fair, the Broncos, Raiders, they were very disappointing. Even the Chargers were disappointing to an extent. But maybe they're just disappointing because the Chiefs are that good, that much better than them within that division. I was with you. I think I may have picked the Chargers to win that division.
Yeah, I think we had the Chiefs too.
Yeah, so I at the same time, I still had Patrick Mahomes, top quarterback in the NFL. I knew that the Chiefs could ultimately end up back in the AFC Championship. I think we were more along the lines of, okay, the Chiefs might go through a little bit of turmoil for once in their lives before they get to the playoffs. But no, that didn't happen, quite honestly. They kept it moving. And that's what happens when you have a great leader like Patrick Mahomes, like Andy Reid at the helm there. And they were ultimately able to get the job done. The rebuilding thing was weird to me. The whole that speech about this is what rebuilding feels. You're not rebuilding when you have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback.
Who said that?
I don't know who said that. Mahomes said this is what rebuilding feels like. We're champions. I don't know who said they were rebuilding. If somebody said that, that's just really weird. You're never rebuilding with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, but
nothing
that was said.
Not to mention, nothing outside of losing Tyreek Hill happened.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't lose like 4 guys to retirement. Like, they didn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought that was a little bit of a stretch, but if somebody said it, that's somebody said that, right? That's their bulletin board material. That's what they feed off of. And that's what the greats have to do, right? There's not a bunch of people out there talking shit on Patrick Mahomes. So you have to find the little things out there and pinpoint them and keep those in your head to keep you driving and keep you moving.
Can I ask you a question?
I'll also, just before you ask, I'll also give credit to the Chiefs, specifically Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, giving props to Jalen Hurts. The only reason I bring that up is because Jalen Hurts has received so much unfair criticism this season that you need guys of that caliber to kind of boast him up so that everybody else can just stop, right? Chris Sims,
you look silly now if you're
yeah, like stop it. So I did like that from them. That was a show of good sportsmanship. Kelce and his brother, I mean Jason and Travis, I mean that shit, it gets me in my emotions because I can just only imagine how both
from
feel.
Their podcast today.
Yeah. I got to give it a listen. I haven't listened to it just yet, but
you got there's just a clip. There's just a clip on Twitter and TikTok. Yeah, that part is nuts. But let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
just as a fan, like just going back throughout the game, we knew that what Mahomes was dealing with injury wise, ankle wise. So not that it wasn't like a thing.
Yeah.
How annoyed did you start getting after he hobbled to the sideline, like looked like he was like crying in pain, and then everything he did when he came back in was mentioned about his ankle. He's doing this on it. Look at this play with his ankle. Shut up. He's either hurt or he's not. Like, I know he's hobbled. I get it. Come on. I didn't need to hear it after every single effing throw the dude made.
And then like the run, you know what I mean? Like if his ankle is messed up, then he must be as fast as Michael Vick. whenever
Right.
that ankle was 100%.
Right.
Like yeah, man.
I'm
Like,
not
come
saying
on.
he was clear.
They didn't say anything about Hurts' shoulder, right? When
Right,
Hurts is
right.
throwing the ball 50 yards to AJ Brown, they didn't say anything about his
Right.
shoulder.
Now, I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm just saying, I as a fan started to get extra. Not to mention he's carving my defense up, so I'm doubling down on my anger. Yeah, but I'm like, dude, Greg Olsen, you gotta stop, bro. But look, man, I don't want to get into offseason. Maybe let's do this. I'm not ready. I gotta shut it down soon.
Fair.
I'm not ready to look at free agency, drafts. Obviously, we know that Shane Steichen is now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Gannon is the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Let's do next week, maybe Monday or Tuesday. Let's do an Eagles off-season show, preview show, and kind of go down the list of all the free agents, and we'll go sell or keep. You and I, and we'll look at that, and we'll look at the coordinators, possibly replacing our on offense and defense. But is there anything else from this game?
Has Brian Johnson been announced yet?
No, but Schefter said this morning, I believe on 97.5 The Fanatic, that you can just like take it to the bank, like Brian Johnson is your offensive coordinator. Now, defensive coordinator is another story. I know there is, I forget the guy's name in-house, knows the scheme very well that they were talking about. My problem with that, Scotty,
I don't want that same scheme.
Like everybody keeps talking about, we'll bring someone in familiar. I don't want someone familiar. I want something new,
familiar.
something different. And I get it. Grass isn't always greener, right? Well, like people always want something new, something fresh. Grass isn't always greener. I understand that. But I went through Jim Schwartz. I went through Jonathan Gannon. I need a taste of something else, man. I need something different from if I play a top 5 quarterback, I'm not going to get shredded with all this talent.
Need to grab somebody from that Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator tree. Whatever they're doing there, they held that Chiefs team to 23 points in the AFC Championship, man.
I'm kind of with you, Abe. I want some. What about Lovie Smith? His name's been thrown around.
Honestly, I don't have familiarity with him as the defensive coordinator.
Right.
Do we know his last? I mean, we'll obviously have to get into that on the next show.
Smith resume. No.
My biggest thing for me, just characteristics of the defensive coordinator. I need an aggressive defensive coordinator, somebody that trusts his guys to the fullest and is willing to send some extra pressure more than often when it's called for.
Yep.
I think if you do that in the Super Bowl, we're looking at different results. So. Those are the characteristics I'm looking for. Trust, not protecting guys, but trusting guys, right? And then letting guys loose, letting them get after the quarterback. Imagine what they do if they do blitz with this team, right?
Yeah, I know.
Like,
bring that up, and I just got like PTSD from Sunday because it's just making me think like, okay, we know the scheme is designed around a 4-man rush, and they've gotten there all year long at a historic rate. But we also thought, with all the talent on the back end, if the pass rush doesn't get home, you still might be okay.
Yeah.
You got shredded at every level.
Yeah, every level, man.
You couldn't stop the run. You couldn't stop the short, the intermediate, the big plays, nothing.
Something else I saw about this game, and I'm not going to take credit for it. It wasn't my observation, but looking at the film afterwards, I saw it on Twitter. The way the Eagles prepare or don't prepare for a all-out fire blitz, right? There's no hot routes that give you a hot option, right? There's nowhere for Jalen Hurts to go to with a guy crossing into where they're blitzing from. And it's something that they struggled with all season. Now, when you look back on it, specifically the Commanders game, right? They just send these all-out blitzes at Jalen Hurts. Sometimes he's able to get out of it because he's just freakishly athletic. But I think what I'm getting at here is I think that the players all over this team, and that's why I'm kind of okay with Shane Steichen going too. Like, I want to see what the offense looks like without him.
Yeah.
I think the players covered up a lot of holes within this team. Like, we talk about how talented this roster was as a whole. On defense, I think the pass rush just covered up Gannon's scheme. That's
a great point. Look at the offense. Look at the offense last year, too.
Jalen Hurts, I think he covered up.
Steichen and AJ Brown, like Steichen and Sirianni were both here last year. Well, not Sirianni. I know Steichen calls plays, but Steichen was here. Gannon was here. I'm with you, man. Like I think we put too much on the players overall like it's a weird, like we gave them all the credit and give the coordinators none.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you saw what they look like with lesser talent, and
Shane
now
Steichen's 0-2 without Jalen Hurts this season.
right.
And you played
Right.
the
So,
Saints. You
right.
lose to the Cowboys, fine, but you played the Saints at home. You couldn't
Right.
get a win.
So it's going to be interesting to see what develops into next season.
How does this team get better? I'm not asking that right now. I'm just saying that's what's going to be interesting for me,
Right.
because I thought that's why this game was so big, Dylan, and why I'm so while I'm so proud of this team and the season that we had, the fun that we had, it is still ultimately disappointing. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
I'm proud and disappointed, and I feel like those two things contradict each other.
You know why
but they're
that
both
is?
true.
You know why that is? Because they overexceeded August by light years.
Yeah.
Heading into the season, we knew the talent.
Yeah.
We never thought Super Bowl 1 seed, right? So
Right.
they exceeded those expectations. But once everything developed into the final product, the goal shifted to you're the best team in the league
Yeah.
now. And now you fell short. So it does sting. The last thing I'll say, I know I'm harping on defense, man, but you brought up Spagnuolo earlier, and it was very reminiscent of when the BG strip sack against Brady. Look at that. Your defense can get shelled. You got to make one play. You got to make a timely play. You got to dial something up at some point or another if your guys aren't getting it done. Look in the second half, right after the Chiefs went up by 1. Yeah, right before they went up 8. We went 3 and out. Why'd that happen? Oh, on third down, Spagnuolo sent the house off the left side, flushed Hurts out to his left, and made him throw the ball away. Mahomes gets the ball. So you had it, one play. They did it. You didn't. And that's what it ultimately came down to, man. So with that said, hell of a ride, hell of a season. It sucks, man. It hurts. I'm not a Union fan. I'm not a big Union fan. But 0-3 in major championships in the last couple of months, and the team that we probably have the least amount of playoff faith in is up next on the docket. So now we got to dive into
disappointment, right?
Right, exactly. Right. The big letdown guys have to prove us wrong now. So we'll see, man. We will certainly see. Guys, with that said, that is going to wrap up this edition of NFL Turf Talk. We will probably do 1 or 2 more before we wrap up this season of it. We'll come back right around draft time to get you guys ready for that, and then get into OTAs and all of that fun stuff. For as far as content goes for myself and Scotty, obviously you have Scotty Talks NBA, and then me and him will be right back at it with the Eagles now in the rearview mirror with Sixers pregame live for the most part. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, turn on notifications for whenever we go live, join the conversation. It's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully the Sixers can give us some fate, something to look forward to. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM Media, have a great rest of your night.
Go Birds.
One-on-one.